It's not just going home, it's the impression left by Taehyung and Jungkook's silent steps in Japan. Amid the hustle and bustle of a city that never really sleeps, the two big names move almost silently, as if merging with the crowd, but harboring plans that are much bigger than just a return ticket. There are no official announcements, no code-filled uploads, no smiles deliberately exhibited to the camera. There were only small bits and pieces of the moment captured, enough to ignite curiosity, enough to make the public ask, what really happened? That night, a light rain swept through the streets. Neon lights bounced on the wet asphalt, and Japan looked like a stage too beautiful for an ordinary farewell. Taehyung is seen walking slightly ahead, his steps light but sure, while Jungkook follows behind with a simple backpack that barely reflects his status as a global star. They spoke slowly, almost in whispers, laughed briefly, and then fell silent again. To the people who happened to pass by, they were just two young men enjoying the evening. But for those who are sensitive, there is a subtle tension, an awareness that time in this place is running out. From a few days before, small signs began to appear. The schedule is abruptly summarized. Canceled appointments without explanation. The appearance of a minimal number of staff without a large entourage. Even their choice of clothes feels different, more practical, simpler, as if ready to move at any moment. All of them seem trivial if they stand alone, but if they are assembled, they form a pattern that is difficult to ignore. Taehyung and Jungkook aren't just finishing an agenda, they're closing a chapter in a small cafe hidden from the main street. They sat face to face, a cup of coffee cooling between them. Taehyung stares out the window, his eyes following the raindrops racing down, while Jungkook plays with a small spoon between his fingers, an old habit that always pops up when his mind is full. Their conversation is inaudible, but body language speaks louder than words. There is seriousness, there is mature consideration, and there is a faint relief, a feeling that arises when a major decision is finally taken. Interestingly, this departure was not shrouded in excessive sadness. There is no aura of melancholy that usually accompanies a breakup. On the contrary, there is a calm energy, the belief that the next step is something necessary, even urgent. Japan, with all its memories, late-night rehearsals, grand stages, cheering fans, seemed to have given what it could. Now, Taehyung and Jungkook feel it's time to move forward, towards a wider space, toward a phase that has not yet been named. Some sources, who declined to be named, hinted that this decision was not impulsive. Discussions have been going on for a long time, long before they set foot on Japanese soil. There are creative, emotional, and personal considerations that go hand in hand. Both are known as perfectionists, not the type who steps without map. If they choose to be discreet, it is not out of doubt, but rather out of wanting to keep something intact, something that is still fragile if exposed to the spotlight too early at dawn. They were seen in the lobby of the hotel, a not very large suitcase standing to the side. No dramatic waving, no keepsake photos. Taehyung took a deep breath, as if breathing in the morning for the last time, then turned to Jungkook. A small nod happened, short, meaningful. In that silence, stored a wordless agreement. Whatever awaits ahead, they will go their own way. Their departure sparked speculation, of course. Is it related to a new project? Is there a change of direction that will surprise fans? Or is it just a much-needed respite after a long, tiring journey? None of those questions has an official answer. But maybe that's exactly where the beauty is. Not all stories need to be explained now. Not all secrets should be opened prematurely. What is clear, this moment marks something important. Not because of the drama, but because of the silence. In a world that demands excessive transparency, Taehyung and Jungkook choose silence as a language. They left Japan not with a roar, but with a light step, as if to say that the end does not always have to be noisy to be meaningful. They're not on the plane yet. The tickets weren't even in their hands. All are still at the planning stage, neat in the head, messy in the feelings. Japan still surrounds them, in all its deceptive calm, as if to give extra time for rethinking. But it is precisely in between that the decision feels increasingly hardened. like slowly forged metal, in a dimly lit room. Taehyung sat on the edge of a sofa, his back straight, his hands clasped together. His face was calm, but his eyes kept a wary flash, a sign of a person weighing the future. Jungkook stood by the window, the curtains slightly open, watching the traffic flowing nonstop. The city knew nothing about their plans, and that ignorance gave it a strange sense of security. "If we do," said Jungkook at last, his voice low, almost drowned out by the sounds of the city, "we must be prepared for the consequences." Taehyung nodded slowly. There was no objection. They've already passed that stage. All that remains is honesty. This plan is not about running away, nor is it about evading. It's about choosing the right time to take a step back in order to be able to jump further. Japan gives them room to think, but also reminds how fast the world is moving. Every day that passes without a decision feels like a lost opportunity. And both know opportunity doesn't always come twice in the same form. On the table lay an open small notebook. The content was not a solid schedule or a formal list, but rather pieces of an idea. Keywords, rough sketches, arrows linking one possibility to another. Taehyung wrote something, then crossed it out, then rewrote it. Jungkook approached, read without comment, then pointed to a line. A short discussion took place, concise, dense, full of meaning. They didn't need many words. That rhythm of cooperation had long since been built. There were moments when doubts slipped in. What if the public misinterprets? What if this tacit decision sparks unnecessary rumors? Taehyung sighed, realizing that living under the spotlight means never being completely free from other people's interpretations. Jungkook, in his own way, reminded him that total control is impossible. All they can keep is intention that IT was getting late. The wall clock moved without a care. Outside, it was raining again, more heavily than before. Taehyung stood up, approached the window, staring at the reflection of himself in the glass. There was an old version of him, always ready to go with the flow, and there was a new version slowly taking shape, bolder to make decisions despite the lack of guarantees. Jungkook looked at him from behind, understanding without needing an explanation. The plan continued to be refined, not in haste, but with care. They talked about the right time, the least noisy way, and a reason strong enough to stand behind it all. There was no exact date, no announcement, just a silent agreement that when the time comes, they will step forward without hesitation. Japan that night became a silent witness. There were no cameras, no cheers, just two figures setting their direction. They hadn't left yet. They hadn't left anything behind. But at that point, everything had already changed. Because a true decision does not always take place at the airport or on board a plane. Sometimes it is born long before, in a small, quiet space, when two people choose to be true to themselves and dare to plan their next steps.